we're going to do a little bit of a discussion of our thoughts on the exhibition that we just saw.
I guess we should just talk about how we feel now, because
That's a big bit.
Yeah, we've just mentioned, like, coming out of here, we're feeling, I don't know, there was two in particular in there that really moved me, like, really made me feel disturbed, and that was obviously the one about the alt-right and the one about I forgot the name. So
The movie of
the
Polish people and just really like a portrait of one person.
Yeah.
I think that the combination of those two really sucker punched it, because you at one hand you see like this digital very very big form of this, and on the other hand you see the real life people who could be behind it, sort of, you're not really sure, but this is what they say in real life. So it's like the real life versus the digital kind of
that's true, because it was about like the digital like movement of the alt-right and like how they portray themselves online and like what that portrayal online influences. Whereas on the movie, we saw like what they was actually saying.
The Polish one was also my favorite. Like, I thought it was interesting how she chose that perspective, but also it felt so intimate because I think it's really a perspective that you would rarely get to like experience.
And so closely.
Yeah, and the things that he was like saying, I really resonated with it, because growing up like in a religious background, super religious, it's like I totally identified what he was saying in a sense. Oh, I was frightened of this, you know,
because you're taught to fear.
Yeah. So then it's like being able to see that he could confront it, and like that's how you move past that. And I also thought it was cool how she used like imagery in between the scenes to like make it even more intimate. Like with the bees on the flowers, and like when she was just touching his skin. I thought it was really cool.
I thought like all the imagery, especially when they were talking about the guy that he worked at that was deaf and blind and gay, and all the penises and stuff, and still like everything that was filmed in such an intimate way, like you could see like the shoulder and the skin and stuff. Like, it really reminded me of what you see in movies sometimes, the male gaze, like the way they film a woman, like really detailed way, but like for a guy, and she even did it with the statue. The statue, the only thing you saw was like the ripped open the ripped open shirt, and like the back and like the muscles, and really focus on skin a lot. And I thought it was really interesting to have these people in a voiceover talk about how manly they are, and like how they don't like gay people and stuff. But then
I think like the extreme close-up of that is such an ironic thing, because these guys are like doing this with their muscles, like showing they're really masculine and stuff, but at the same time the close-up of them, you see that makes them seem so vulnerable. You see their eyelashes, you see like their little
and never their eyes or like the entire face.
And that's the thing, like you never see their full face, but it's as if you do it at the same time. Like you can imagine this person.
But I think one part that really stood out to me was that, you know, when you read the sign, it talked about like physical labor. I thought it was really interesting because it switched from the images of there's like the metal hammer and they were breaking down things, and then it would switch to the statue of the masculine man, and then it would switch to like Armani perfume. And it was like physical labor and then like luxury, and then physical labor and like what it means to be a man and work into luxury, or like just the guy sitting down with a new tattoo just like chilling.
I also thought like when we were talking about like the one about the mass shooters and the one from the Polish artist, I thought it was almost the video from the Polish artist was like humanizing in a way, because it's kind of like that is like the basis of what would ultimately cause a mass shooting. And then it was like you're looking at a person and it's like almost like, okay, from that sense you can understand why someone would think that way. And then you look at the mass shooting, and that seems like such a far distance.
I think all of us, we all really appreciated the Polish one, probably because it really humanized. Like, we didn't hear anything about his negative thoughts towards immigrants or different religions or anything about that until after we had all this intimate moments of learning like different parts of his body and hearing different actions and just hearing him talk about stereotypes. So versus like the one in the middle of the room, about, you know, alt-right, we just immediately were hit with this narrative. They like put a narrative, like a bias on the narrative already, whereas I feel like the Polish one went in there with more of a, he is human, humanized him, and then provided the narrative of what he thinks.
I also think that that difference is mainly in this is the study, the Polish one is the study of one person, an actual human being, and the other one is more a digital movement that will eventually lead to human beings doing
Because you
something.
can't like just focus on every human
Yeah.
in that movement, and you have to look at it as a whole.
As a whole.
Because that guy in the Polish video would ultimately, if he were to like take action
If he
on
was
his
exposed
thoughts.
to like
Exactly.
stuff like in the just this doctrine of you know, you're a weak man if you allow this invasion and stuff like that. That's one of the lines
feel
from
like he
the
would
like
take o-
yeah.
I think maybe we should talk about the other three. Maybe we could. Which one do you guys want to start off? Do you want to keep on going with the video, or do you want to move to the Curacao? The guy from Curacao.
I like the environmental one, the one about
the video, the other video.
yeah, because I thought it was really interesting the format that she chose to like show the words about how they were like green economy, like something related to like
Yeah.
selling the concept of the
fixing what you're.
basically. The message was really like clear, but then I thought it was interesting how she basically talked about the whole concept, and then to the bottom she was like compared it to colonialism, and then like those words kind of like they moved, and I thought that was cool.
It was really interesting. Well, I thought what was interesting about that video about the green economy was the idea that you can feel morally better by paying someone to plant a tree in a location which doesn't necessarily need to be a tree, because they were talking about how traditionally like deserts and stuff, you didn't need to put a tree there for it to be like good, you know, but now if you feel bad about going on a long plane ride, you can buy a tree. So technically you're still doing the harm, but you're just trying to fix it by like shoving something on.
When I was watching like the video, I don't know why it seemed really sensual to me. You know, the land dunes. Like I thought, hang on, is this a woman's body or something? Like I don't know. I just thought that was really nice, like the way that was shot.
Mother Nature, Mother Earth.
Yeah. I genuinely thought that.
Yeah.
And like when I was studying business, you know, obviously climate change, and that's like a really big problem, and I thought it was interesting how she showed that you know, they're trying to control emission, but then it's like you're still doing bad.
Yeah, I also thought the way that she presented it was really interesting with the old movies. I could hear the sound, the high pitched noise that televisions made, and I think it really kind of hurt your eyes. I sat in the middle, and you have these two. You've got the middle TV and the two next to them that all show a different picture at most times, and
But it all creates one big picture.
yeah, and it kind of has this waver of the image, and it just kind of hurts to look at
Flickering.
almost.
Oh,
Flickering,
yeah,
that's the
really.
word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I thought it was really. It also, I don't know if that was completely intentional, that it kind of hurt to look at the same time.
I
You have
think
these-
so. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
so.
You have these beautiful images of the Earth, but it's dying, and it kind of hurts to look at because you're getting dizzy because there's so many things happening.
It's often from the perspective of like a plane window, right, or like looking down on the
Which was pretty ironic. She was
Yeah.
there talking to us about how she took this massive plane ride, and at the end of the plane ride, they were like, buy a tree for the amount of carbon that you basically just produced, like one person produced. But yet, I feel like she would have made this video after the whole ordeal of having that plane ride and then having to buy one. So the fact that she would go back on the plane to like prove the point, bring it back to the story, but also she went back on a plane.
Well, I think in the credits
film it.
as well, she kind of mentions this, right? Like, if you listen to the credits, she's doing like a phone call, I think, with someone trying to like explain the idea of like how, and then she asks like how much like
It's gonna waste a lot of energy.
how much
She
energy
said
am I gonna
that.
waste to like create this exhibition? And I thought,
Prove it.
yeah.
It's just like reminded me of like a cyclical kind of, I don't know, like when you're reading books, you know, you just find this cycle sometimes that your characters or like the main people go through, and I felt like this was the beginning of her cycle, that she was like, I went on this plane ride, that's the story, I used this energy, and then I bought a tree. now I'm using energy to make this project, and I went on a plane to make this project, and I'm aware of like all the energy that I'm wasting, but I've only bought one tree. So let's talk about the guy from Curacao. What was his name? Kevin? I think his name was Kevin.
Let's see.
I really liked it. It was the first one I looked at.
The blue.
I love, Kevin
Osepa.
Osepa. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I loved this bit. This was probably one of my favorite ones. I love the composition. I love the way that there were photos on top of photos, like the edges. I like the different eye levels. I'm using all my keywords here. The hues, the saturation, everything. I loved it. It really made me think of Brockhampton, like a new version of like a boy band in America.
The shade of that blue is just so powerful, like in contrast with everything else, like the blue, it's just so rich and...
Wasn't everywhere, but I really liked how sometimes it would just be this very small detail. Like, and the color yellow also came back a couple of times, because in that same picture, like, one of the guys has a yellow flower, but then you also have the pregnant lady
with the yellow,
and you've got the person in the desert with a big gold reflection
that
or
was
something
really
like
cool.
that. And I really like those two colors, because like if you look at the color spectrum, the yellow and the blue is, I think, almost at the
almost
because purple is against yellow, but so
Yeah,
like
those are the colors of the Curacao flag, right?
Like there's blue, there's yellow, and there's white. I think. But like I thought that it was so cool because that specific color of blue is so like bright. It's so specific, and yet the crest of the Curacao University or college is the same exact blue as he chose, and the blue of the washing soap is the same exact blue. And then, I don't know, the clip of the umbilical cord thing.
I thought it was really interesting what you were saying about how the clip is blue from the baby, and the crest, like, this color is so...
It's not like he made that for
this color is so entrenched, apparently, in the subconscious or something,
in their
that people
society.
just keep picking it.
And it's off the flag, too.
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting were there were two television screens there.
Yeah.
They were a bit hidden. There's one that is just an
we
old
walked
TV.
past one.
Yeah, I kept walking past them, because one of them is just a commercial of the soap.
I like that one.
Yeah, I like this too. And the other one were two of them.
That was cool. The way
was-
he like composed it for his body.
Yeah. Just like just like a little twist and with I think it's birds that is on his
Yeah,
shoulders.
little birds. And we're saying that's like black and white, and you know those birds are colored.
Yeah, you can see it.
He explains, like, in the beginning of the exhibition about how it's about magic and reality, like, living together. And I guess, like, you see that in pretty much all of the photos.
Yeah.
You've got, like, the blue bottles, like, maybe this, because I think the color blue, it symbolizes magic and spirituality there. And, exactly, that one. And you've got the reality of, I don't know, it just looks like some urban environment, but it's about these
It's like he
magic and
bottled
reality
up the
living
island
together.
and he brought it
Yeah.
to like Holland
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, and I like how he like chose to kind of blur the bottles and then also focus on the background that was clearly hair, because it kind of it kind of made me feel like he was connecting basically there to his existence in the Netherlands, because that can be really difficult if you're from the Caribbean, because it's such a juxtaposition culturally.
Yeah, well, as soon as we walk in, we see the ear as the first, the ear as it's covered in blue. It's the first thing we see, and I guess the exhibition itself, like with all the different artists, is called Images Are Our Voices. And like as soon as you walk in, you see this image of the ear. It's like almost listen to this exhibition kind of thing. You've got the ear that's fully blue, you've got the eyes that are blue, and the body that's blue, covered in this blue color. So I think that's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's almost like creating your own lexical field. Like I was just thinking that the blue highlights which bits we should be paying attention to, you know?
See that color blue, you keep really focusing on it when it appears again.
Yeah.
And like I also just like how he chose to kind of use some Latin American influences, like when we saw the pesa and stuff, because Curacao is also just such a place that is so diverse in terms of who lives there.
Close to Venezuela as well.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool, and I also thought it was interesting how he kind of displayed in most of his pictures kind of how they chose to beautify death, like how he placed the flowers and all of those and also kind of the garlic being on fire, like, you know, that spiritual concept surrounding
Yeah.
how they deal with that. I thought it was
I
interesting.
really liked how he made, like, how he really showed that the spiritual is part of everyday life.
Yeah.
That it's in very small things, and I think that the one where he had the bottles and he showed, like, he blurred the bottles and he was really focusing on the rest is a bit of how he brought that magical spirituality
With him.
with him,
That's what
and how
I
is that's
thought.
part of him.
Because it
Yeah.
seems that that's in the Netherlands. That photo was taken in the Netherlands, I'm pretty
Definitely, if you look at that
The-
gray sky.
sure. Yeah. But
Horrible building. Yeah, definitely. That's
yeah, I think maybe we could talk about the final
the final one.
one.
Yeah.
You were saying stuff interesting about
Yeah, I did. You guys didn't really like it that much. I gathered. This one
It was
is.
interesting, but it wasn't like it didn't hit home for me as the
Instantly,
other
like,
ones
I found
did.
it hard to connect to.
It's
Yeah.
It was a collection of pictures and also stuff that she'd also taken, and I really liked how she chose to like put random objects kind of next to nature, kind of making that juxtaposition. And when you look at like the colors as well, it's like very different, and that kind of almost makes you think about it. Like there's also somewhere she did like buildings and stuff, and that it was really interesting to me how she composed it.
Yeah.
This was the one from Eva Kruger? I don't know how you say her name. From now on, everything will be different. And what I was talking about, I like it because I recognize it in some way. Because a lot of these pictures, like you have the corner of a very typical building, very post-war era. Building that's still standing, and you had these stairs that just seem to go to nowhere. And what I really like about it is that sometimes when you bike around, you see these flashes of weirdness, of otherness almost, of something that should not really belong here, but it's there. And I really like it in quirks of architecture, like for instance, the stairs that don't go anywhere. They exist, they're real, they're somewhere. And what it really reminded me of is when I was when I went to Krakow with school, we were on the bus and there was this one overpass over the highway, and it was sort of a hallway on stilts, and it just kept going. And I like it. You see it in a flash. You drive by, you see it start, and you see it just go on forever. You couldn't see the end, and there was no way to get on it, and there was no way to go down. There were windows, weirdly enough, but no doors. And it's one of those really things that seem like they're a glitch in the Matrix, maybe, or someone had like been a dream. Something that just it's not completely finished. There's a place where it should go, but it's not there. And I felt like that feeling of it's not completed is really reflected in the way that the entire exhibition together, like this one felt a little bit less, you guys said, like it wasn't as complete. I think that really that it's like an unfinished sentence almost, as I just did like 5 times.
Yeah.
That's a bit what I
The spiral staircase as well. Don't we always see photographs of it, but from a different perspective? Like we see it looking down, but we see spiral staircases here in a different perspective, as like seeing them vertically rather than like looking downwards. I thought maybe that's something like she's showing stuff in different perspectives.
Yeah, and I also liked how she chose to, like Marisa said, take pictures of stuff that you probably would never think would be taken pictures of. You take a picture of like a electrical socket and like those type of things, and like a random board. And like there was also this picture where there's like this crumpled paper, and it says like, if you keep saying this, and if it's in Dutch, but like if you read it, it goes on and it's like when will all the copies become the same image? And I just thought it's like really deep, and also just it's like a gigantic scrushed piece of paper in like a huge room, and you're like, how did they crumple that? Like all of these questions. So I really like her as well.
I think that now hearing everybody else talk about it, I think that an interesting part of it for me, because when I did read her bio, like on the plaque, it did say that her work mainly focused on like reproduction, photocopies, and pictures of other art that is hers. So it made me, like just now when you guys were talking, it made me really think about our society as it is now, because all of these works were really talks about talking about society and how we see it now, but maybe it's a little bit on when will what we see become like fake, because all we see are images and all we see are reproductions. When will we see like the real bit? And I feel like her art maybe says something about that, because like, is it actually what I'm being shown? Is it actually how I would perceive it?
That's interesting that you said that, because like in the book we read about, in the second chapter we read about the importance of how you view an image and what can affect, for example, an art piece. Not just like you seeing it, but it being transported, you seeing it on a phone as opposed to seeing it in real life. So it's interesting because when you first look at her exhibition, you could think, oh, this is super simple. But then knowing the information, it's really complex. Yeah.
Reminded me a little bit of this. It's in English, it's the Treachery of Images. It's a picture of a pipe that underneath it says, this isn't a pipe. And it's really about how, maybe you've seen it before, how an image of an object is not the object itself.
Hi, so we actually forgot to record an outro, so I'll be doing that as I've edited it. I would just like to say that everything that you just heard was literally us just chatting casually as we just came out of the exhibition and had something to eat. So nothing's perfect, and it's just our opinions and our thoughts about the exhibition we saw. But thank you very much for watching or listening. And yeah, thank you.